Now I'd like to invite the last person to take the floor in this discussion today, Dr. Claudia Bittner, who is an art historian and an independent curator in Munich. She specializes in public art. She creates and supervises projects in the public space, among others, Sculpture Collective in Münster in 1997 and Dream City in Munich in 1990. From 1999 to 2003, she headed the Kunstwerk Dream, a model project of art in the public space in Munich. She was a lecturer of history on art on the Technische Universität in Berlin and Munich, and at University of Art in Linz as well. So she counsels to communities in artistic programs. She is also in different juries, and she is also responsible for Kunstanbau for German Federal Ministry of Transport and Internal Affairs and Building and Structures. So the floor is yours, Claudia. Warm welcome to everyone. Good morning. So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Carsten, for inviting me to your female group. When we've been asking the question if arts can at all be sustainable and what kind of arts are we discussing, when I was confronted with this question by citizens and politicians when I was working in urban space, people started asking me this question related to fixed permanent artworks which wouldn't be harmful to the environment in a long time, because I always worked with the ephemeric, temporary works. So I asked, well, what do you think should be permanent and sustainable in this piece of art? So this piece of art also had to be always well visible beforehand. I've never worried about things like that in the context of art. Nobody would even ask me, especially in the 1990s. In the 1990s, art moved very much towards the ephemerical. We did something and we assumed that it wouldn't change. But now this postulate has been formulated to create something that would stay with us, which would also have some social relevance. So I trust that arts can do that art can change our everyday life and our perception as well, and our outlook on different matters. It can also change our environment, our surrounding, and our perception of different things. And that's the reason why I was able to delve the area of art in public arts. Art that I was supposed to create was supposed to be relevant to the situation and resistant. It was to persevere in space. It was supposed to fit into the area, the place itself, and be very well connected with the topic and the place it was to be situated. That was the first criterion. And the second criterion was that this art was to add something to the narrative, to the identification of this place. It was also supposed to give access to real or fictitious opportunities, possibilities, and history of this place. It was to be actively absorbed in the place it was situated in. So all of you who are here and who deal with art on everyday basis, you have your own approach to art, including temporary objects of art created in cooperation with neighbors, communities, and friends. In temporary projects, these questions have already been asked. And indeed, cooperation with people has been initiated. There were new structures for cooperating, acting, and communicating have been already founded. Conditions created by politicians, urban space planning, funding, etc. are there, because this is what decides about co-creating reality. Over the recent years, I've been dealing with integration and implementation of arts, artistic long-term activities in long-term shaping of areas that we inhabit. Among others, there's a question: what art object can be created to make it possible to be integrated in this urban tissue? What is important for us to present our art? There are two things. I'll present to you two examples here. There are some artworks that we confront. Perhaps these are not the best work arts, but they are good examples how efficient they can be. So the first, it's a cooperation of a female artist in Vienna, a part of a city, Britta Thier. So she called it favorites, referring to her favorite things. And that's the top title she gave. She publicized it through social media, Facebook, and especially Instagram. She decided to present her favorite places. A key thing for everyone. Very important in internet communication, showing what we know. This is how we can represent ourselves. So she decided to meet all the people involved from her collection of favorites, her favorites, and she created a video relating to the history of her favorite places. Some very typical, beautiful stories, beautiful and atypical, not typical stories. So she created it in this convention of contemporary series such as Friends. Next, the videos, the series was collected into season 1 of the series, and then it was played precisely in the places that they were referring to. Here you can see an actress presenting one of her favorite places, so the protagonists have become public people, media people. They presented themselves on the Instagram. They also got involved in this recognizable narration about the place through cooperation, collaboration in social media in an artistic way. So the next example, there was a cooperation of Rosemary Trockler, an artist with a landscape architect, Topotec One, a Constanbau program in Munich, which was about public program of supporting art in construction. So they carried out a very difficult project to develop a difficult public space, a big public space, on the roof, a cover, as they called it, over 6 railway tracks. So a very thin layer, a structure. It was not possible to plant any trees on it because it was so thick. Of course, this competition included some very traditional ideas, but the authorities decided to open this project not only to professional gardeners and architects, but also to artists who could get into cooperation with architects, but they were to be responsible for managing that. There was also an artist who wanted to create a huge mosaic there. You can do that as well. You can plant a small mosaic on this huge space. However, the piece by Mary Trockle won. She created a beautiful narrative for this place. This is what you need to imagine, in fact. So she wanted to create this landscape that was to reach from mountains up to the sea. So there was artificial and real grass that was arranged in stripes there. Then there were also some hurdles to jump over them. That was to symbolize cattle on mountain meadows that can also be used as sport equipment. There were some benches installed there as well. Some trampolines, different pieces of equipment, decorative architecture, and there were also some special attraction places. You could press a button to have a simulation of a sea climate by generating a salty mist when you press the button. And this postulate and ambition to create a playing ground for both children and adults was greatly fulfilled. So over 10, 11 years, it's been working very well because people enjoy being there at different times of day, and they use this space for different meetings. So both these projects show how different responses there can be for this postulate of sustainable growth and durability of projects. So it was successful in creating this awareness and the space that is inhabited by many people, and created the sense of identity for the place. It also shows what creative heads can create. So a very broad understanding and scope of how art can be presented for our purposes. This is what we notice perhaps only during pandemics, that different authors, and in this approach from artists, this is what we miss. This is like the phantom pain that we have after parts of the body that went missing suddenly. So that was my contribution to this discussion. Claudia, thank you very much for pointing out to some very important situations when cities are more and more gentrified and there is very little public space. Every free piece of land is sold to someone unknown, and suddenly in this place is offered to artists for them to enter and to recreate a moment of freedom for people, and the space to meet for different social groups to meet. So the two projects that you presented are an unusual example of how urban tissue doesn't live without people in there. And first of all, about communication that to a large extent can be created by artists in a totally different way, by asking different questions for small agora. So thank you very much for your inputs.